Hello and welcome to another edition of San Diego Sports Junkies, a show for fans.
By the fans.
This is Josh Taylor along with Justin Smead, and we're going to start by thanking our sponsor, our buddy Sean K at SK Digital from business cards and postcards and more. Give Sean K a call, 858-408-0732, and let him know the San Diego Sports Junkies sent you. First off, we're going to dive right into our recap here and talk about the Chargers win 30-21 over the Cowboys.
Yeah, huge win, Josh, 30-21. What a game. I mean, we go from first half thinking we might not have it against the Cowboys, and sure enough, the boys come back and prove us wrong again. And as Mike McCoy's team goes, this team goes with them, and I just think that all the players are responding well to the new coaching staff. It's great to see. Yeah,
absolutely. And obviously, it doesn't help that Phillip Rivers is continuing to be on fire, setting an NFL record with 83.3% completions on 401 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception.
Yeah, that was a little ridiculous. He was, and I can use this phrase freely this week because he was Peyton Manning-esque in being surgical with the football. He was methodical. He drove. It just kind of reminded me of the Philly game where he would take calls at the line, make sure everybody was in the right setup with a banged up line. He made sure all the calls were right, and he just made the right decisions with the football. And it was great to see. It was literally a surgical performance by Phillip.
Yeah, and to top that off, throwing his 200th touchdown catch against the same team.
Yep.
To the same man.
The same guy. It couldn't have been better fitting.
It couldn't. You couldn't have scripted it more than what we saw this week against Dallas. Gates, that 56-yard touchdown that we're talking about. It's nice to see Phillip Rivers hitting the wide open deep man.
And it's a touch pass. You saw defenders around Gates and other receivers during the day. And he put a nice little touch on it. It would just be right in the nook, man, and just out of the reach of defender. That's the Phillip I'm used to seeing of old when he was at his highest peak in the league. And he's definitely returning to that form this year, and it's awesome to see.
Yeah, and the offense as a whole extremely well against Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Wood had 2 more touchdowns. The guy just continues to take more and more of the workload from the running back position.
Right, and we haven't even given enough credit to the offensive line yet. Being 3 guys down in the line, having a week to prepare for that. The new line, Ornberger, give me some help here. Ornberger, who's the other guy on the left? Mike Harris comes back. These guys only had a week to prepare for this game and learn the calls from Nick and Phillip, and they have their own thing going already. You get thrown into the mix because of injuries. They performed outstanding. Nick Hardwick deserves a gold star because he was up there getting the guys ready, doing the line calls. Phillip would audible. You could see some movement going around, pointing, screaming, talking. It was great communicating. For me, I just smile when I think about that game. That was one of those games you go, okay, you lose the game, you're 1-3, and you're really in a mess of a hole to start off the year because the other 2 teams are 4-0. That's a big hole to crawl out of if you want to go to the playoffs. So to keep pace, to come back the way they did in the second half, to blank their offense with the defense, all things came together in that second. I just couldn't be more proud of a team, and that has to be, in the early season, Mike McCoy's signature win.
Well, and I think you hit it on the head right there with Mike McCoy because a lot of these same guys that we have on the offensive line we had last year.
Right.
And for whatever reason, our coaching staff last year couldn't utilize them in the way that Mike McCoy has to this point.
Right.
And it just shows what our coaching staff is made of and what they strive to do week in and week out and get these guys prepared for, that battle that's going to ensue.
Yeah, and you great point because it's McCoy, it's the game plan, it's Wisenhunt that are utilizing the players we have. They might not be starters in the NFL. They might be career-long backups, these guys. But you know what? For a couple days, there's a little continuity there from last year. Some guys have come back through, and they've played before in other teams. It's hard to gel an offensive line like that. The way they did it in 1 week, to give them, 3 or 4 days prep time, That's unbelievable. And kudos to the coaching staff too. They really had these guys locked in. Even when we fell behind early in the game, they didn't blink an eye. It was let's get back to work. We screwed up. We made a turnover. Let's get back on the field. Let's fill up the ball and let's go. Let's get those points on the board. And it's great.
And I think a lot of that helped as well is getting DJ Fluker back. You know,
of course.
Our
Mauler.
Even though he's a rookie, he solidifies that right side of the line, and I think with him in there, you know, it limits the pass rush capability of the opposing defensive line.
Right. No, and that's another good point because what you don't see in the box score or anything, you don't see how blocking schemes are put out there because Fluker, what he does for you, you don't have to add an extra blocker on that right side at times. So that makes you eligible for another receiver. You can do different things in the offense. Him being in there is a huge help for Phillip. So that right side, he knows he has the confidence in that young rookie to, hey, I can get an extra receiver out here, call a better formation, and we can get a better chance to score the football. So that's what he brings to the table in Fluker. So. And
speaking of confidence in our young rookies, Keenan Allen, again, continuing to make clutch catch after clutch catch on third downs.
Did he make top 10 on that ESPN? I mean, God, that catch was beautiful.
That catch was amazing.
It was dynamite, man.
As far as it being on top 10 ESPN,
I didn't either. I didn't stay up that late, no.
But he's been filling in nicely with the loss of Malcolm Floyd. Obviously, we signed Lavelle Hawkins this week, who's going to be there in the mix. I think he's going to be returning the ball, which will take Danny Woodhead's focus more back to the offensive side of the ball.
Huge.
And also, we can't forget about Matthews. He may not have broken any big runs this week. But he did a lot of the so-called dirty work.
Right, and I got to watch the replay yesterday. It was actually the game of the week on NFL Network, and
nice.
they subsidized the game into an hour. And what I saw from Ryan Matthews, it wasn't anything highlight popping, but he was doing the dirty work. He was getting in between the tackles. He held on to the football for the main reason. He protected. He did a good job of blocking for Phillip when he was in there, and I think that's what that's his role this year. I think he's gonna be utilized in maybe the third, fourth quarters when the other defense is a little tired, and then you bring in a bruiser like Ryan Matthews up the middle. Then you got to chase him outside with stretch plays. I think that's what Mike McCoy's focus is because you see early on in the game it's more Woodhead and maybe a little more Ronnie Brown type thing.
Right.
So I think it's a change of pace with the backs, and they've been using them very well.
Yeah, the running back by committee is definitely something that Wisenhunt has incorporated very well.
Right.
From the Ronnie Brown to the Matthews to the Woodhead. I'm kind of sad to see Fozzie Whitaker go, though.
Damn Norv.
Obviously we needed the offensive line help because of all the injuries.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to see Fozzie Whitaker in the mix more.
Hey,
obviously, he's gone now.
Well, when you get rid of Trent Richardson, you got to replace him with Fozzie Whitaker. Okay?
Right.
Yeah. Norm Turner over there is going, how can we get back at San Diego?
Right.
Let's take their fourth-string running back.
Right.
I got him good. All right, Norm, go get him, buddy.
Go get him, buddy.
Go get him, Norm.
So the other things I want to talk about our defense. Okay, so obviously everybody knows our defense has struggled, especially the secondary, not getting the key, sacks, turnovers and such. But it was really nice to see the defense coming up with a big time play late in the game, causing the fumble, getting the return, getting the ball back, and so we can really put the nail in the coffin.
Right, and early on in the game, Des Bryant's running around like a gazelle. It was sad to see, and I know our defense hasn't played, or I should just say our secondary hasn't played up to its standards. I think the front seven has been doing a good job, regardless of what anybody says. But I think for the defense, they need more gelling. I think there's a lot of moving parts there, including Manti getting back in there for his first action. He played pretty decent while he was in there. He made some tackles. Looked like he was flying around with the football. Didn't look like he was too nervous. Big key stop by the defense late in that game, and that's all you can ask for. If you're one of those kinds of defenses, look, the Packers are 30th or 31st in the league in pass defense. okay, they're going to put up 60, but they're probably going to give up 58 doing it, you know?
Right.
So as long as you outscore the other team, and what Phillip's been doing has been a good job of staying on the field so that the defense can rest a little bit. It all intertwines, and I think it has a lot to do with each other. But that one hit at the end by Cresdon Butler, and you get Richard Marshall, two guys that last week, one guy got burned for the game-winning touchdown the week before, Cresdon Butler. He redeems himself, and then Richard Marshall didn't have really a spectacular game either against the Titans. So for those guys to make an impact late in the game with a fumble recovery and a fumble forced was awesome to see, and I don't think John Pagano could be more happy with his defense there.
No, but obviously the loss of Dwight Freeney now along with Malcolm Floyd, both out for the season. Tough. I think Freeney coming off the edge, he may not have been getting the sacks, but he's putting serious pressure on the quarterback. He's causing them to get rid of that ball. We've talked about it time and time again in the earlier shows this year.
Right.
It's going to be a big loss.
It is, and he doesn't just bring pass rush ability. He brings leadership. He brings insight to other players, the younger kids. It is a huge loss, and their motto here is, Mike McCoy says it all: next man up.
Right.
Well, the next man up is Larry English, and he was a former first-round pick. So if we're going to get anything done, he needs to step up a little bit until Melvin Ingram gets fully mended, until Manti gets a hold of this defense to where he's comfortable playing every down. So, yeah, it's a big loss, Josh. I think right now at this point, I don't think there's anybody out in the waiver wire as far as defensive ends or linebackers go. So, yeah, I think we're just going to have to do it in-house and see what happens.
So before I want to talk about the trade deadline coming up, but first off, Chargers signed Lavelle Hawkins that we just talked about briefly, wide receiver, kick returner, and Thomas Kaiser. Lavelle Hawkins, share with everybody what he's going to bring to the table.
Well, he's definitely going to bring a sprinter's mentality. The kid can absolutely fly. I think he played with Tennessee, and he had a little stint with the 49ers. If you look at some of his YouTube clips, just type in Lavelle Hawkins, you'll see some dynamic plays even from this season with the 49ers.
He had a kick return against us.
Yes, sir. He made this unbelievable play against the Chargers in preseason where you're like, wow, that was pretty intense. And judging by all the responses by 49er fans, they didn't want to see him go this year. A big fan favorite down there, but it's a numbers game, and he's the one who got crunched at the end. And he had been out in the street doing a couple workouts for different teams and never landed because he's kind of a tweener. He's a slot guy when he's in an offense, and he's a punt returner, kick returner. So if you don't need either of those things, he's not a good fit for your team. And fortunate for us, we do, because like you said, it lets Danny Woodhead focus on the offensive side of the ball and not get hurt returning kicks or punts.
Right, and this guy's excited to be with San Diego. I was actually watching his
Chargers.com clip.
Thank you. And he was talking about, he was literally at the airport about to fly to Washington when he received the call from the Chargers wanting to pick him up.
Right.
And he said also that, Phillip Rivers, this is the type of guy he's been wanting to play for. He's been watching Phillip Rivers over the year. He loves his intensity, his fire, his drive to win, and he's really excited to be a Charger. He says it's a dream come true.
Well, there's come on. How many better places are there than San Diego? Right? We talk about this all the time. For one, you're going to San Diego. For two, you're playing with a Pro Bowl quarterback that's finding his game again. This guy can instantly make you a big deal if you're willing to put in the work and get on the same page as Phillip Rivers.
Right.
Look at what Eddie Royal's doing. He's resurrecting his career.
Rivers will make you look like a Pro Bowler.
Right, and look at young Keenan Allen already in this offense. And nobody knew him coming in. We just knew he had a lot of talent. He's starting to step up. And Vincent Brown's going to have a good game here coming up. I mean, he's been just solid in different areas, but he hasn't had a big game yet. And I'm waiting for the Vincent Brown breakout game, too. So spreading the ball around, and Lavelle Hawkins couldn't have landed on a better team.
Absolutely. Okay, so October 29th is the trade deadline coming up here. If you were the general manager, who out there that you may have heard of or had interest in, whether it's via trade or free agency, do you see the Chargers realistically going after?
Well, we've already talked earlier. I mean, me and you. Kerry Rhodes and then Jarius Byrd. There's safeties that can immediately impact a football team. There's a couple things there, though. Jarius Byrd, contract-wise, it doesn't make sense for a lot of teams, but it's only a few $1 million. It depends on what the Bills want to pick up. That would be a great addition. He's a talented guy that really doesn't like his place with the Bills. He really wants to look for a new spot. He's asked for a trade. Kerry Rhodes, on the other hand, is everybody's kind of scratching their head on him. A lot of rumors out there that he hasn't signed with a team because he's gay, and that to me doesn't. For me, that is not a big deal to me. I wouldn't care.
Right.
He was cut, and then it was weird. Like, nobody heard from him, and he's a very talented safety. So either something's going on there in his personal life that nobody knows about, or maybe he will come to the realization he wants to play football and get on a team. Those are two guys that we'd had our radar on. And, yeah, for me, I don't care about Kerry Rhodes' sexual orientation. As long as he makes plays on the football field, I could give a shit.
Right, and he was ranked as the 4th best safety in the NFL last year.
Right.
And like you said, Jarius Byrd is also another strong safety that can help Eric Weddle back there. And
Tall
I think
and
if
physical.
you add one of these two guys or somebody very similar to strengthen that secondary, it takes a little pressure off our cornerbacks because they know that they have somebody that is going to protect the middle of the field. It's going to make those hits. It's going to put a little fear into the wide receivers. Mm-hmm. I think that makes it a little easier on Derek Cox and on Sharice Wright, trying to cover their receivers.
See, and there's one more guy out there I'll throw out there, and I know it's an older name, but I could see him impacting a team because he didn't go through all the training camp. His legs would be fresh. He'd be ready to go right now, and it would be Richard Seymour. He's a veteran. He's just like a Dwight Freeney. I don't know if he has the motor that Dwight still has at this point in his career, but Richard Seymour is out there, and I don't know why you wouldn't take a flyer on him, just bring him in for a physical, see if he's still got at least a little bit in the tank. You could put him on certain situational downs. He could bull rush. I'm sure he could bull rush still. The guy's a monster.
Right.
I think he'd be a good addition. He'd be a little older player, but you don't have to sign him 2-3 years. Just sign him for a year and let him play out his career here in San Diego.
And I think that's the problem with Seymour right now is the fact that he knows that his career is coming towards the end. He's looking for a big payday to, solidify his future.
I think so.
But
a team that might be a contender as well. You don't want to just go to the Jaguars this year because you're going to the Jaguars.
Right. So if the Chargers can sell the fact that he's coming to a team that has a potential to be a playoff contender, maybe we give him a 1-year contract, but it's based on his abilities, playing time, what he does as far as, sacks, make it, what am I trying to say? Make it production-based.
Right.
And basically tell him...
Incentive-based.
Right, and tell him that by his performance the remainder of this season...
You'll be paid accordingly.
Would be paid accordingly, and we may... add additional years to your contract.
Right. No, and he's a tweener guy. He's an iffy guy. Like, how do you know what he's going to do when he gets in here? All you can do is kind of roll the dice on him. He's an older player, just like Freeney. That's what you did. You did that with Bob Sanders a couple of years ago,
right?
And you did that with Freeney now. So yeah, you roll the dice there. But you know what? You get veteran leadership, and the guy's still a mammoth man. He could still push people around.
Right. So let's look into this upcoming week, Week 5. We're playing the Oakland Raiders, the 1-3 Oakland Raiders.
The Raiders.
Divisional games are always tough. Whether the Raiders have been struggling, they're hampered by injuries as well. Terrell Pryor's coming off of an injury, a concussion injury. McFadden is dealing with a hamstring injury. Their backup Reese is also dealing with a hip injury. So. They're a little banged up on the offensive side of the field, but again, when you're playing a divisional matchup, it's always going to be challenging.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who you're playing. It could be, the Jaguars. They're really terrible. The Raiders aren't a very great team, but you know what? They show flashes at times. Terrell Pryor can make plays on the football field, so he's one guy you have to account for. You have to put a spy out there in your defense and make sure you have that guy covered at all times because he's going to run around and make plays regardless of what defense you're playing.
Right.
He is. So he's definitely a worry. Darren McFadden's always a worry, but it seems like he might not play this game, but we don't know that yet.
Right.
Marcel Reese is a great backup. The kid can play. They have Denarius Moore, wide receiver. So they got some weapons out there. And to touch on the division side of it, these are the games we have to win this year because of how good Kansas City and Denver is doing in the standings.
Right.
If we don't get the games we're supposed to get this year, we're going to be out of it before we can even snap our fingers, because you figure even if you split with Kansas City and Denver, and maybe you split with Oakland, that's not going to guarantee you a playoff spot. So you need to win the games you're supposed to. You've got to beat Oakland on the road and at home. Make sure you get those and put those in your back pocket.
Totally agree. These are the games you have to win, not only because it's a team you should beat, but it's a divisional, and if it comes down to divisional records late in the year,
right.
You got to have W's in this column. Also, it's an AFC opponent, so that bodes well as well when it comes to playoff rankings and tiebreakers and all that.
In the AFC category,
right? So these are the games that they have to win. The Chargers are playing really well on offense, and I don't see any reason why we don't win this game.
I don't either.
But
they can't take it lightly, obviously.
They can't take it lightly. I would love to see them blow the Raiders out, not only because I can't stand the Raiders, but for the sheer fact that we have the Colts coming into town. It would be nice to have a little stretch here going into the bye week. Maybe take these next 3 and end up 5-2 going into the bye week, because the back half of our schedule is really tough.
Right, and that's the Colts are a different animal. But as far as the Raiders go, I mean, you really have to focus and really put the pedal to the metal on this game. I don't want to see any letting up in this game. No. I don't care if you're up 48-10. I want to see them finish it out and win by 56. I you know what I mean
Nice.
though?
Like, yeah, absolutely.
Because our offense, right, Josh, has been in a groove here, and I don't want to see them come out and be conservative in any way.
Right. Don't play down. Don't play down to their level.
Exactly. Don't play down that competition. Even though they're kind of a Mickey Mouse team right now, they don't have all the pieces together yet over there, doesn't mean you can't go in there with a solid attitude, game plan, just like you would any other opponent. Dissect them like you've been doing the Cowboys, the Eagles. Use that same game plan against the Raiders. I don't want to see any millicking around. I don't want to see anybody frolicking, having fun. I want to see like a business trip mentality.
Right, and hopefully the likes of Te'o and Butler and our defensive line can get to the quarterback. Washington got 6 sacks on the Oakland's quarterback last week. Granted, he's more of a backup quarterback. He's more of a stationary quarterback. He's not a Terrell Pryor that's going to break off runs if the play collapses. I think the key on our defense is Manti Te'o and Donald Butler filling up the running lanes, containment, and keeping the big plays from happening.
Yeah, the containment right there is what you said, and containing the middle of the field with a spy linebacker. This is going to be key this week, and I'm not an X's and O's guy. Like, I play Madden, okay? I just know when I'm playing a running quarterback, you got to have a spy defender at all times on your running quarterback. It doesn't mean he's not going to get positive yards, but you contain him to 5 or 6.
Limit
it. And definitely. And I think, God, man, Manti. I think, and I know it's one game, but I loved, let's talk about him for a second. Just loved his tenacity, his work ethic. He flew around to the football. He seemed to be in all the plays he was supposed to be in when he was on the field.
Absolutely. You and I were talking about that earlier this week, is the fact that every time a play was being made when Te'o was in there, he was always there, whether he was assisting with the tackle, assisting with the sack.
Right.
They're following up a tackle. What if the ball gets knocked loose? He's right there. He's around the ball all the time, and that's what you want to see from your middle linebacker.
Yeah, and when one of the guys, I forget who got the sack early in the game, Manti was like, he was on fire, man. His enthusiasm and he was like, pumping his fist. He was screaming. He was like, his veins were popping. I'm like, that's what I missed when Junior left. I mean, that kind of fiery, I'm not comparing him to Junior Seau, of course, but just fiery attitude linebacker. Good to see. I think he's got a lot of upside.
And I want to touch on this briefly. You kind of mentioned it earlier in this show. Things to look forward to in this week's matchup against the Raiders. I think Keenan Allen and Vincent Brown are going to have big days, and the reason why I believe so is that Gates and Woodhead have been so key to the start of the season. Defenses are going to start keying on them, and that's going to open up more one-on-ones with Keenan Allen and Vincent Brown, and I think you're going to see them both have big days this week.
You hit it on the head. They're focusing more on Gates now. They're seeing the old Gates return to form. On the same page with Phillip. How many catches did Gates have last week? It was ridiculous, like 10 or 11.
Yeah, I think he had 12 catches.
Unbelievable.
For over 100 yards.
That's crazy. They're gaining that rapport again around the league that you need to put 2 on Gates. That's going to let Green, right, Vincent Brown, everybody get intact when Danny Woodhead lines up in the slot. You got to account for all these wide receivers, and Vincent Brown, I tell you what, will get a big, long play in this game. Watch. And I don't know if it would be for a touchdown, but it'll be a long gainer. It'll be about 50, 60 yards because that guy can absolutely beat anybody in that secondary of the Raiders. The Raiders' secondary is not the best secondary in the world. They're kind of like us.
Right. They are slightly better. They're averaging, I think I saw it was like 290 yards through the air is what they're giving up. The Chargers are closer to like 400.
Oh, I know. We're like setting records.
But then again, they played like the Jaguars, so those stats really don't stand out to me because they haven't reflected the offenses that the Chargers have had to face the first 4 weeks.
Exactly.
But I look for, as far as, let's jump into keys of the game really quick, I look for Phillip Rivers to continue his success. I look for a big game from Keenan Allen. I look for a big game from Vincent Brown. And ultimately, I look for our defense to continue to get after it and cause a few turnovers in this game.
Yeah, and you hit it. I mean, the normal culprits are going to be Gatesy. I think Keenan Allen and Vincent Brown are a good mix. I like the way I like their speed off the ball. I think they're going to have a good day. I think Gates is probably going to have another 100 yards. I look for Ryan Matthews to have over 100 yards rushing for the first time in I don't know how long. They had a stat on last week's game of it. I expect big games out of everybody. I think Woodhead will have some catches out of the backfield, make a big impact. I really hope Lavelle Hawkins gets a little taste of football Sunday. It gets in the mix because I want to see him return some kicks. I mean, you don't need a full week of camp to return kicks. You really don't. So put him in there right away and let him be a danger threat on special teams. That way they have to worry about him. So I think all these things combined, I think the Chargers go out there and put a great game plan together and just crush the Raiders.
So with that said, what's your prediction for this week's matchup?
Well, it's like LT always used to say, I hate the Raiders. It's Raider week. We're not losing to the Raiders. I agree with that this week. I think we win 42-21. I think the way I saw the Raiders play the Broncos a few weeks back, I like the way they fought back a little bit. I like the tenacity in the Raiders, how they didn't just give up, let it, die.
Right.
I think they're a tough team. I think they've got a lot of grit, but I think the Chargers are a much better football team. I do.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be similar to that Denver game. I think the Chargers are going to get out big early, and I think Matthews potentially could have a very big game because we're going to be ahead. We're going to run the ball more. I'm looking at 38-17 Chargers.
Mind you, this will be under the lights too. This will be like a Monday Night Football game.
It's like a Sunday night after the Sunday night game.
Right. We're going to be loaded for football from 10 a.m. all the way to like 11:30 at night.
Yes.
That's like over 12 hours of football.
That's awesome.
That's crazy.
That's awesome.
That's like crazy.
There's going to be a lot of drunk people when this game starts.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So, guys, thank you again for tuning into San Diego Sports Junkies. Remember to visit or call our sponsor, Sean K. SK Digital. From business cards to postcards and more, give Sean a call, 858-408-0732. Let him know San Diego Sports Junkies sent you. Guys, it's been a great show. We'll see you next week. We are out.
See ya. You got Floyd good either?